Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, Everyday Spirituality with Karen Wyatt. Thanks so much for joining me here again today. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about clearing the field, a simple practice to help improve challenging relationships. And I'll get to that in just a moment, but I have an announcement for you. I don't always make announcements on this podcast, but I do want to let you know that the Kickstarter campaign for my new book, Wild and Holy, A Journey Through Grief, Guilt, and Grace in Italy, is now live and it's going strong. The campaign is fully funded. And in case you don't know about Kickstarter, it is a crowdfunding platform. And so people make pledges to order either various formats of the book or bundles of other rewards as well. And unless the campaign fully funds, you don't receive those gifts and you're never charged for the gifts. But once it funds, you're guaranteed that you will receive whatever you pledge for. So this is good news. If you haven't signed up yet, you now know whatever you pledge for, whatever tier you choose, you will receive the bonuses that you've signed up for. So that includes, at the lowest tier, just the ebook that you receive digitally, but there's the paperback book, a signed paperback. There's a limited edition hardcover version of the book, and only a few of those are being produced, and they'll be signed and numbered, and those are not going to be sold anywhere retail through any outlets. So the hardcover version can only be obtained on Kickstarter. So that's one incentive to get it from Kickstarter instead of waiting till it comes out on Amazon. You won't be able to get the hardcover. And then there are other bonuses like an itinerary for a pilgrimage through Italy, similar to the one that I took, a grief pilgrimage, and also an ebook, a how-to ebook on grief travel that talks about how to plan meaningful travel for grief. If you would like to travel anywhere, lots of different ideas for types of travel you can do for grief, how to set it up and how to plan it and how to make it meaningful, how to create rituals and make it a meaningful experience for you. So those are some of the bonuses. Oh, also I just added, because we funded my goal so quickly, I added a stretch goal. If we raise another $1,000 on this campaign, I'm going to give everyone access to the presentation I recently did for the Scientific and Medical Network titled From Ego to Soul, Grief as a Bridge to Your Higher Self, which was very well received. And I'm excited to share it because it has a lot of wisdom from all of my books, actually, but includes wisdom from Wild and Holy in the presentation. So I think you would really enjoy watching that as well. So no matter what tier you sign up for, if we hit that stretch goal, everyone will get access to that presentation. So I'm sorry to take up your time with this announcement. I just wanted you to know about it because I'm very excited, and I hope you'll check out the campaign. You can go to tinyurl.com/wildandholy, and that will take you right to the Kickstarter campaign where you can read about it and view all the tiers and decide if you'd like to back the campaign. And I mean, the lowest tier is just $10, so it's not too big an output, but I appreciate it if you'll take a look at it, and I'd love to share Wild and Holy with you. So we'll move on now with today's episode. And this is about a practice for clearing the field when we have challenging relationships. And so I'll start by just telling you a story of a woman who came to me stating that she'd been estranged from her daughter for a couple of years. They hadn't spoken to each other or even seen one another. There was some sort of falling out that happened, and the woman recently had been trying to get back in touch with her daughter. She really wanted to reconcile. She wanted to apologize for something she said, and was desperately trying to reach out to her daughter. However, her daughter was ignoring emails, text messages, phone calls, not answering phone calls. And she had gone to her daughter's house a few times and knowing her daughter was at home and knocked on the door and no one came to the door to let her in. So she has been feeling very shut out and full of regret and remorse because of what happened, but also being in this position of not being able to make amends, to make it better, and having no idea what to do. And it's not just her daughter that she's separated from, but her grandchildren as well that she hasn't been able to see for 2 years. So we talked at length about what she might do. And I remembered hearing a story about the Hawaiian practice of ho'oponopono. And that's been with me and on my mind for a long time. I've had lots of thoughts, and I've had lots of ways of thinking about that practice and using parts of it in my own life. And I told her about this idea that I understood from a story I heard about Ho'oponopono of a psychologist who worked in a locked psychiatric ward for the criminally mentally ill, very severely ill people who practiced Ho'oponopono. He was a Hawaiian psychologist, so the practice of Ho'oponopono was within his own tradition and belief system. He practiced it remotely for the patients in that facility, sitting in his office with their charts open, and would say Ho'oponopono for each of them. And while we cannot say there's a direct cause and effect, no one can actually prove that happened, there was a dramatic improvement in the state, the mental state and the behavior of the inpatients in that ward over time as he continued this practice. And ultimately, all of the patients ended up being released and sent to lower care facilities because their behavior improved so much. And there was a dramatic difference seen in that one facility. And the one thing we know is that the psychologist practiced Ho'oponopono every day for the patients. And so when I talk about this, I want to say and make it clear that Ho'oponopono is a sacred practice from Hawaiian culture, traditionally done in families and guided by a respected elder. And so there is a depth and a meaning to the actual practice of Ho'oponopono that cannot be translated outside of that culture, nor should it be. So I am not going to claim that I am doing Ho'oponopono or that any of us should try to honor that practice, but having read about it and having understood what it consists of, I have I've been borrowing the language or echoing the language of Ho'oponopono in my own life to create a simple practice that I might use with deep respect for the sacred practice that is specific to Hawaiian culture. So back to the story that I was telling you of the woman estranged from her daughter. I mentioned to her these 4 statements. I kind of think of them as simple little prayers that can be said that consist of this: saying, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you." And to be able to say these for another person remotely. So my thought was, while this woman cannot do anything directly, she can't even get face to face with her daughter to make amends and to reconcile, she could begin to clear her own energy field and just working on herself by taking responsibility for whatever was said or done and using these 4 simple prayers to say while she thinks about her daughter and thinks about their relationship. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And so I wasn't sure if this would make any difference in the woman's relationship with her daughter, but what I believed is that it would help the woman to feel like at least she was doing something. She was practicing something, making some attempt to try to bring healing to this relationship. And I think what saying these 4 statements does, it actually is a way of taking responsibility for whatever I have done to cause harm. I am so sorry. Please forgive me for what I have done. And so it actually focuses inwardly to acknowledge I'm not perfect, and I am sure I have done things that have disturbed the energy field of our relationship. I'm going to take responsibility and atone for that, whether or not I get to connect with you face to face, whether or not you ever hear my words or ever even know that I am practicing this. So what happened in this case, the mother called me back later and let me know that after about 1 week, she practiced this, saying these 4 little prayers every day, multiple times a day, while she thought about her daughter and her grandchildren and sent love to all of them. After a week, her daughter called her and said, can we get together and talk sometime? And that began a healing journey for her and her daughter. It's not that it healed everything. It cleared enough of the negative energy between them that her daughter was able to reach out to her and reestablish enough of a connection that they could begin doing the healing work that needed to be done. And I was just so impressed to hear the story. And again, in these situations, it's not something we have proof. Oh, this is what made the difference. This is what happened. It's an anecdote. It's a story of what happened for someone. And it may inspire each one of us to want to try in our own way to clear up the energy field when we have a difficult relationship that it's not possible to actually fix directly face to face. So I think it's a really powerful practice to be able to utilize in life, because there may be a lot of people that maybe we can't put a finger on it, but we know that there is tension or distance in our relationship, but we don't even know for sure where it's coming from or what it is. Sometimes we experience the tension and distance, and we recognize what's coming from the other person. We recognize, wow, that person just has a problem with me. They're jealous of me. They don't like the way I do this. They're not very accepting. They're not very tolerant of me. We might be able to recognize that those issues seem to be present for the other person from what we observe in their behavior and how they talk to us and deal with us. But the problem is when all we do is analyze what the other person is doing wrong, we're not taking responsibility or looking within. And this is the way we challenge our own egos to be able to say, wait, what if there's more to this story than I recognize or can see? And this very thing happened for me with my own mother, because we had a long history of tension and conflict between us. And I had created a pretty long list of things my mother had done that hurt me from childhood on, ways that I felt like she didn't show love to me. She wasn't there for me. She didn't come through when I needed her. And in fact, she said something that was very hurtful or did something that crushed me. I had a lot of evidence. And so that was the story I carried with me for a long time. I had a whole litany there of issues my mother created or caused for me. And it was clear my mom and I were not ever going to resolve those issues. There was no way. There was too much tension, too much frustration between us, too much old baggage and history for us to ever sit down and honestly talk about any of those episodes. And I also knew if I mentioned any of those things to her, she would deny it or not be able to see any of the things that she had done that had caused pain in me. So it felt like we were very stuck. We just had this difficult relationship. It was never going to move forward. There was nothing that could be done about it. But one day something struck me. This question popped into my head, which was, what if it's all me? And what I mean by that is I just thought, what if I were to take the position that my mother's just my mother? She's just being herself. She's always been herself. She's doing the best she can. She's just the person she is. And what if all of my discomfort and my pain and my hurt feelings in our relationship are just me? What if it's just me creating this story out of her behavior, whether her behavior is right or wrong or misguided or not? The story I'm telling is a story I wrote in my own head. And what if that's just all me creating that story? What if I even take that stance and say, forget about what she's actually doing. I can't focus there because I can't change her. I can't even talk to her about it. I'm never going to change her behavior or who she is, but I could change my own attitude and change how I respond to things that happen, and also change the story that I keep telling myself over and over again. Just that question, what if it's all me, like completely turned me around and helped me begin to look within and look at myself. And to be honest, in the beginning, my ego said, it's not me at all. None of it's me. It's not my fault. It's her fault. It isn't me. And I'm not going to carry the blame for something. I didn't do anything wrong. My ego said that over and over again. But the way I gradually worked through it was to say, but what if there's something subtle about me that I don't even understand? What if there's some energy I'm putting out there? What if I'm harboring resentment toward my mom and she feels that, and that affects how she responds to me? And I'm not even aware that I'm doing it, but I'm sending out these little barbs of negativity toward her, and she's responding to that. I began to ask myself these what if questions, and to gradually, very slowly and delicately, because that's how the ego likes it. The ego's too threatened to have too much confrontation all at once. So I very gradually began to explore a little bit more and a little bit more. And I honestly started doing this exercise of clearing the field, similar to Ho'oponopono, but I gradually began to say these 4 statements. And thinking about my mom, when I got to a point that I could say, hey, I'm not perfect. I have done things that have been hurtful to my mom, even though they seemed minor or they seemed justified. I've said things, I've behaved in certain ways that have probably really hurt my mom. And there are probably times when I hurt her and I had no idea I was hurting her. I didn't mean to, but inadvertently, my behavior may have caused her pain. So as I began to allow the possibility that I carried some responsibility for the way our relationship had turned out, I began to say these 4 prayers. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I began to say those for my mom. And gradually over time, I felt this shifting happening within me. And in fact, more and more, I became able to see some of the negativity that I had carried with me since early childhood. A lot of negative attitudes and judgments toward my mom, a lot of resentment that I had carried within me for a long time. And I began to see it for what it was, not to blame myself for carrying all of that, because there were reasons why I had those feelings. They were valid and real, but to also see that those feelings of mine had an impact on her as well. And I began to feel more and more compassion for my mom, and something between us gradually started shifting. And it suddenly became easier for us to have a phone conversation that didn't end in an argument or in stress or tension between us, a phone conversation that was actually pleasant, and where I could actually say, I love you, Mom, and feel it and mean it. And she felt it when I said it from that place. So over time, with this question, what if it's all me? Which simply just means I'm willing to take responsibility for me, for how I behave, how I think, the stories I tell in my head, the things I choose to remember, and how I live with those. How do I carry them, and how do I behave around my mom? And so I wasn't shaming or blaming myself. I was simply taking responsibility, though, for what is me, what is mine that I have created. And in that process, I was actually rewriting the story somewhat. I was allowing room to have compassion for my mom and understand when she had done certain things, behaved in certain ways that seemed awful to me. I could see through it a little bit, and I began to see and understand the pain she was carrying, and to understand a little bit better why she might have done what she did or said what she said. And it really opened the door for me to find more grace, more room for acceptance and less judgment, more tolerance for her, and even forgiveness for her over time. It wasn't dramatic and overnight change, but it was a practice that helped me gradually soften. And what I was doing was softening my own ego and my ego's love of telling the same story over and over again, dramatically, and reliving and rehashing the same blame, the same hurt feelings, the same resentment over and over. I started letting go of my attachment to those stories. And in fact, the stories started to soften in my mind. My memories of the stories started to change. I started to see it more in a more nuanced way and a little differently than I'd ever seen it before. And even now I look back and I think, why was I that upset about my mom doing that? And it has actually shifted what I remember and how I remember things. And so I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because I know that there are plenty of other people out there who are harboring resentment. And because it's a time in our society when we are so very polarized, I see it everywhere I go. People are carrying so much negativity and resentment for others in their lives, often for family members they've become estranged from, that they just don't talk to. And it feels very sad to me because even when we have enormous differences between us, we see the world completely differently, we can still find love for people who are very different from us, but we have to tell different stories to ourselves, and we have to be willing to soften the resentment and the blame and the hurt that our egos are harboring. So this practice of being able to ask, first of all, what if it's all me? What if I am creating all my own suffering around this person in my own head, in my own mind, because of what I'm clinging to, what I'm remembering and ruminating on from the past? And what if I can also change that? What if I cannot change the other person? I can't change the past, but I can change the way I'm carrying the past, the way I think about it now, and the way I act and behave now. So I would say what has happened, my mom has died now, so she's not here physically for me to relate to, but I have a brother, and there are some of the same issues that I had with my mother, but I will say they're not really issues. There are huge differences between us and how we view the world, how we vote, how we see other people in the world. But that doesn't matter because I still know that I love him dearly. And being able to say, what if it's all me, helps me own what is mine, what comes from me. And in the years since I've been taking this attitude and looking at life this way, it's completely changed all of the interactions I have. At first with my mom, then with my brother, because neither one of us triggers the other anymore. We just don't. We're more respectful. We're kind and caring and gentle with each other. We don't go into territory where we already know we disagree and we don't see things the same way. And so we don't need to rehash that. We don't need to talk about that. And we don't need to try to change one another's minds. We can simply enjoy some time together and hear stories of what's going on. Where have you been? Where did you travel to? What are you enjoying these days? We can, there's plenty that we can discuss. We don't have to bring up old pain or new pain. We don't have to add to the pain that was there from the past. We can be in this state of, I would say, higher energy that is clearer to both of us. And we both now are taking responsibility for what we say and how we say it, and for making sure that we're always being gentle and respectful and caring toward one another. And it's amazing. And I have to say, it's made all the difference. And especially getting older, knowing that time is limited. We don't know how long we'll have here. We don't know how many years we have. You know, for the mom who had been estranged from her daughter and grandchildren for 2 years, that's a huge amount of time to lose with someone precious to you. And so I'm taking the attitude and the state of mind for myself these days that this is my ongoing practice every single day. A part of my meditation and contemplation session every morning is to be in this state of mind of, what if it's all me? How do I take responsibility? Whatever may have disturbed me or upset me in the last 24 hours? Well, what if that's just me? What if that's just the way I'm looking at it? What if that's just because I set up some expectation that got disappointed? What if it means that I'm just not being tolerant or being accepting of the other person? What if I just need to change my own attitude a little bit and it will be easier for me? And I do want to emphasize here, because I already hear criticism that's going to be coming from some areas. Well, what if the other person is actually abusive? And yes, that does happen. And there are times when, for the benefit of both sides, we need to cut off communication. We need to say, no, we're not moving forward. It's best if we do not connect or communicate anymore. Sometimes that does need to happen. And it takes discernment on our part to know when that's the right step. But I think we can also use this practice of first identifying, what is me? What am I responsible for? What do I need to heal and fix within me? Then looking at the other person's behavior. And if there's abuse there, we're not likely to be able to solve an abusive relationship using these kinds of field clearing techniques. That's something way beyond what we're able to do within ourselves. So a part of self-love, self-awareness, and self-compassion is knowing when it's time to leave the relationship. So I'm not talking about something in that extreme when it is necessary for safety, for sanity, for health, to leave and allow the relationship to end. But I'm talking about those relationships that we want to continue, that are not destructive and abusive to us, just difficult and challenging, and that we dislike the discomfort that we feel around certain people. That this might be a technique that you could use that could be of some benefit. So just to review again, the question to ask first is, what if this is all me? And challenge your own ego with that. And maybe if your ego can't say, it's not all me, absolutely not, then to say, what part of this is coming from me? What am I bringing to this relationship that I can't see? What is my inner energy that I'm not aware of? What's coming across in my words or my attitude, or even just my aura, my energy field as I approach another person? What are they receiving from me or perceiving from me that could be causing pain? And then what judgment or attachment might I be holding? And remember, sometimes what the ego is holding on to is the need to be right. And we make other people wrong so that we can be right. And that's one of the first things we have to ask the ego to just gently let go of a little bit, because what if I'm not always right? What if I am not always the person who's done everything right and only good? What if sometimes I'm wrong? What if sometimes I've made a mistake? What if sometimes I'm not perfect? And encourage the ego to be able to let go of that need for perfection, the need to always win and always be right and always have control. And so this is a fantastic challenge actually for growing in consciousness, because the more we can help our egos to let go, the better suited we are to begin to grow in higher consciousness. So the question, what if it's all me, or how much of this is all me, if you have to tone it down a little in the beginning. And then remember to make it a daily practice of saying, I'm sorry. And it doesn't even have to be for a specific person. It could just be for anything in this day that I have thought or done that might have brought harm to someone else. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Those 4 little statements of reconciliation can make a huge difference. And again, as I said, they clear the field. They clear our energy so much. And we can do it with anyone. Maybe it's the cashier at the grocery store or a person who was driving in front of us on the road that we felt annoyed with. Or maybe someone even yelled something or said something that was rude. We can just offer this statement out. Maybe what we were sorry for is that we judged that person, or we thought of them badly, or we felt angry at them in the moment. We can just say, I'm sorry for that. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. And those 4 statements alone can help us just at least release our own energy from any attachments we have to furthering that story, to carrying it on, to having to keep thinking about it or running it through our heads. So I encourage you to give this a try this next week. See if it will help you with any of your relationships. What if it's all me? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I'll say goodbye to you with that. I'll be back next week. And until then, remember, we're here for love and for grief. So face your fear, be ready for whatever life brings you next, and love each and every moment of your very precious life. Bye-bye.